Greetings and welcome back to D.E. Yeager Woodworking. Today I've hit a brick wall in cutting board ideas. Or rather, I'll be showing you step by step how to make an Endgrain brick pattern cutting board. We'll be using a gorgeous orange Padauk, which when finished turns into a deep ruby red color that is stunning. So let's head back into the shop and see how this one is put together. As I stated in the intro, we'll be using Padauk as the main colored wood in this project, so be prepared for the fallout of orange dust as it gets everywhere. As you can see, the stock that I purchased was waxed on both ends to slow the moisture release in the wood, but I certainly don't want this going through the drum sander, so we'll start by scraping off the excess. The beginning dimensions of this stock are 12 inches long by 2 inches square, but I never want to assume those dimensions are 100% accurate, so I'll run each piece through the drum sander and make sure that each one is uniformly square. I now want to take each of the pieces and cut them in half lengthwise, so that I end up with 8 total pieces that are roughly 12 inches long, 2 inches wide, and 1 inch thick. And of course, since cuts aren't 100% accurate, ever, I send each piece through the drum sander until they are equal in thickness. I now want to turn my attention to the so-called mortar part of the brick pattern. I'm using maple for this part of the board. I'm cutting thin strips of a little over 1/4 of an inch to place between each piece of the Padauk. And as you might have guessed, these thin strips also need to be run through the drum sander to ensure equal thickness. But herein lies the problem of working with Padauk. It is an extremely vibrant color and can easily stain lighter woods like maple. So before I run the maple strips through the sander, I've got to do a little housekeeping and remove as much of the Padauk dust as possible. Now I'm confident that I can run the maple strips through the sander without any ill effects from the previous run of Padauk. We're now ready for the first glue up. I'm simply going to place a maple strip between each of the pieces of Padauk to create a panel of alternating pieces. Note that the last piece of Padauk in this glue up is 1/2 of the width of each of the other pieces of Padauk. You'll understand why during the final glue up. To keep everything in alignment in the vertical direction, I place a couple of cauls on top and gently apply pressure to the clamps in each direction. For a little extra insurance, I add one of those pesky weights that's always staring at me, as if I should be using them for something else. Overnight, and as the world turns, I let the glue dry and contemplate life's decisions before returning the next day to see the weight is still sitting in judgment. After unclamping, it's back to the drum sander to true the surface of this panel. After a quick switch out of the crosscut sled, I'm now ready to make equal width cuts across this panel of approximately 1 inch. When I get to the point where I'm uncomfortable making these cuts with the crosscut sled, I switch back over to using the table saw fence. With all of the brick pattern cut, I need to put some thought into the longer mortar sections of the cutting board. Remember, this is an Endgrain cutting board, so these pieces need to be oriented in the same direction as the pieces I just cut. While you would think I could have just cut more maple pieces in the beginning, they would be oriented cross-grain during this next glue up, and could cause twisting, warping, or even separation in the board over time. To alleviate this, I purchased some solid maple panels that are 1/4 inch thick by 6.5 inches wide by 15 inches long. But since I need these strips to be a little longer than 13 inches, I will create a larger panel using 3 of the smaller ones. After a quick edge trim on each piece, it becomes apparent that these panels have a small warp to them. I'm not really too worried about this, but to reduce the effect, I'm going to glue up this panel in an alternating orientation, so that the panel warps aren't all in the same direction. This creates some force in opposite directions to lessen the warping tendency. Gluing up thin panels can be a little tricky, but after watching several videos on this topic, I've adopted the practice you see here. Using painter's tape along the butted seam of the 2 panels, and then 3 pieces across the seam, I get a snug joint during the glue up. After repeating the process with the second panel, I take the entire glue up to a more solid surface, and then place a few pieces of melamine on top to keep the panel flat and clamp it to the table to dry. When When I return to unclamp the glue up, I see the weight has made another appearance. Bully. Let's get this tape off and we'll cut this panel down to size. I'm using one of the brick pattern pieces to set the fence on my table saw for cutting the maple panel. Now that the maple panel has been sized, I can run it through the drum sander to get a thickness equal to the previously cut maple pieces. With the width of the panel set and the desired thickness achieved, I need to cut the individual pieces from the panel. I'm using a thin ripping jig to set the desired width of the cuts so that it's easily repeatable. Okay, let's talk about a few failures before this next glue up. Remember during the first glue up when I said that the last Padauk board was intentionally half the width of the other pieces? It's done intentionally, so that when the brick panel cuts were made and the maple pieces added between them, you rotate every other piece to create the actual brick pattern that you see here. For some reason, I failed to film me orienting the pieces and cut directly to the glue up that you'll see now. We've arrived at the final glue up for this board, and I'm sure that you can see the glaring error I made when cutting the maple strips. Unfortunately, when I made my first cut on the maple panel, it was oriented in the wrong direction. It should have been rotated 90 degrees on the table saw. Alas, I made one cut before I noticed this, which then shortened the overall width of the panel. That's why the maple strips you see here in the glue up aren't as long as the brick pieces. In hindsight, I guess I could have gone back and created another maple panel, but decided to press on and adjust the width of the board on each side to remediate this error. To reduce the possibility of shifting with all of these strips during glue up, I'm using a little jig that I had previously made for making picture frames. It gives me a square corner to align all the pieces, and then I can use clamps and cawls to keep everything in alignment in all directions. Phew, that's a lot of glue, clamps, and cawls. We'll let this dry overnight and get it ready for final sanding. It's a new day, and hey, no wait this morning. Let's get this thing unclamped and through the drum sander to true its surface. After several passes through the drum sander on each side, I now want to make sure that both sides are true and flat. To do this, I mark the surface of the board with pencil and run it through the sander. If marks still exist after the pass-through, I'll run it through again until no pencil marks remain. I'll then perform this procedure on the other side of the board. It's now time to correct my mistake. I need to cut off the protrusions on each side of the board. Luckily, I was sort of thinking ahead during the glue up and placed the maple strips in the center rather than all the way to one side. This would have totally ruined the symmetry of the final board. Look, I have a surprise for you. It's the first time I get to use my new downdraft sanding table in a video. I built this recently but have yet to make a video for it. If you think I should make a how-to video for a downdraft table, please leave a comment below. This thing has been a game changer in controlling dust in the shop while sanding, and with Padauk on the menu, it will definitely earn its keep today. As with all of my cutting boards, I use a random orbital sander with grits progressing from 120, 180, 240, and 320. So that I know that I've fully covered all areas of the cutting board when sanding, I scribe a line pattern across the surface of the board. I'll sand in one direction side to side, and then back and forth in the other direction until no pencil marks remain. I'll then flip the board and perform the same procedure. I then repeat this process for each grit of sandpaper used. Before finishing with the final 320 grit sandpaper, I take the board over to the laser to burn my traditional logo on the back of the board. Before the last round of sanding, I want to raise the grain by spraying water across all surfaces of the cutting board. I'll let the board fully dry and then finish the sanding process with the 320 grit paper. This last sanding stage is where I'll also take the opportunity to soften all of the edges of the cutting board. Before we give this board an oil bath, I give it a few blasts from the air compressor and wipe it down fully to remove the sanding dust from the surface. Into the bath she goes. I'll leave it in for a good 30-minute soak, then remove it to the drying rack where it will sit overnight. I just love the deep, rich red color of Padauk when it's finished, and the Endgrain orientation gives it such an interesting visual texture. I'm so glad I went with it over walnut like so many other brick cutting boards on YouTube. We're entering the final stages of this project. All that's left is to condition the board and add some feet. And there you have it, an Endgrain brick wall pattern cutting board made of gorgeous Padauk. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with a friend, and leave a comment below. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so and turn on notifications so that you'll know when new content is released. As always, thanks for watching.